League is different. It's not just you. Sure, the map is red, everything is unbalanced, there's feats of strength, and it's also becoming increasingly expensive to buy anything. But none of this is actually the reason. And trust me, I've been around since season 1, so I've seen it all. Ow! 15 years ago, two guys sat in a room debating how League should be released. They weren't game developers, they were just business guys, so they thought a little bit differently. They thought everyone was fighting over the same piece of real estate. The way everything existed was you'd go to a midnight launch, pay $89 for a new game, and then you'd go home and play it. That was that. These two business guys knew that they couldn't compete in this market, so they just went over here instead and created a new audience. People who didn't want to, or possibly couldn't, pay for a game. The air over here smelled like fear, but also opportunity. Back in these days, you just didn't release a game for free, unless you're Farmville. Maybe they were onto something, but regardless, I don't think these two games were targeting the same audience. The model was a huge success. Free to play brought in players en masse, and some of those players decided they enjoyed the game so much they wanted to voluntarily spend money on cosmetics. This is how League earned its revenue. The skins weren't really over the top. Riot stuck to their original ideas in an effort to keep the game open to as many players as possible, make the skins too fancy, and maybe some people's PCs couldn't run the game anymore. In 2012, they released the first Ultimate skin, and I can't really stress how insane this skin was at the time.
Hello, Ezreal. Do you require a map?
No.
Pulsefire Ezreal was honestly revolutionary, especially in a game where most of the characters still looked like this. Of course, throughout the game's lifetime, Riot continued to make Ultimate skins, but over time, they slipped further and further away from actually feeling Ultimate. Prime example here being Soulfighter Samira. Pulsefire Ezreal changed as you level up. DJ Sona had 3 different models and multiple hours of sound effects. Elementalist Lux has 10 different forms and different visuals for each one. Soulfighter Samira adds absolutely nothing new to the previous legendary skins and also T-poses during her ult. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. The game was becoming increasingly more popular, and with each year that passed, the player count was going up. Tournaments were becoming increasingly embellished, and rumors of an animated show about the game began to circulate. The days of Riot Games and their fun little indie project, League of Legends Clash of Fates, were in the rearview mirror and growing further away with each passing day. And this is what happens when companies become more successful. Investors grow, and a board becomes more focused on how you can monetize your product for their own benefit. Suddenly, there's other people to answer to. And they don't care about how good the game is, they just care about profit. Yet you can't deny, something happened, and League feels different even compared to the late 2010s. Enshittification. What is it exactly? Because for such a funny sounding word, it actually won Word of the Year in 2022. And then somehow again it won in 2024, but this time in Australia, probably because of time zones or something. First, a company creates a good product for its users. And then the product gets progressively worse for its non-paying customers and focuses on its paying customers. Finally, those paying customers are then harvested for as much value as possible, and then the product crawls into a hole and dies. Sound familiar? It's a phrase that was coined by Cory Doctorow back in 2022, and it's a really good phrase to explain the trajectory of, honestly, most companies in the past 10 years. Take Amazon, for example. It was originally a marketplace for the entire internet. Eventually, it reached a critical point of popularity where if you were a vendor, you couldn't afford to not put your products on there. This created a snowball effect, which led to more and more people flocking to Amazon until it was basically all that anyone used. And then, like clockwork, they began to up their fees. These days, if you sell a product on the website, Amazon keeps 45% of the revenue in fees. They also introduced a feature where you can pay to feature higher on the search. As more people took advantage of this, you couldn't really afford to not use it. Nowadays, the entire first page for a product is mostly just whoever's winning the bidding war to get their product as high as possible. Someone on the League of Legends subreddit asked if Riot are going to make more Ultimate skins because they're, quote, really easy to make since the quality is so similar to Exalted skins. Quite a shift in sentiment from the first Ultimate skin being released, so it makes you wonder what happened in between. And also, what exactly are Exalted skins? Well, they're exactly the same thing, but just 10 times more expensive. An Ultimate skin was originally used as a way to test out new technological advancements in the engine and see how far they could push limits. Ezreal changing forms, Sona changing music, Lux changing forms, and for a consumer, they cost $25. An Exalted skin is the exact same thing, except it arguably doesn't push limits as far, and it also costs $250. Oh, and also on top of that, they introduced a gacha system with it, so you actually have a chance of unboxing it. Realistically though, for most people, this isn't going to happen until you spend the $250. It's the exact same thing, except now they found a way to extract 10 times more money for it, and also introduce gambling. And don't get me wrong, I love gambling, but if you're a child, you probably shouldn't be doing it. Even further than this though, the Hall of Fame Faker skin cost $500. Far and away the most expensive cosmetic to ever be released in the game's 15-year lifespan. It got released as a tribute to a player who, ironically, is famous for being frugal and not even using skins when he plays. But at least this skin is genuinely beautiful, like truly, it's a work of art. I've got to say, hats off to the artist who created this, and I really hope he got a big bonus. Maybe we can all band together and write a letter to Riot thanking him for his work. Never mind, he got laid off immediately after making it. Here's the thing though, you can probably make the argument that it's fine to drain League of Legends as a cash cow to help fund projects like Arcane, for example. But for the game itself, it doesn't look like things are on the path of getting better. Honestly, it's quite the opposite. A big redeeming factor of League is that you actually could gain a decent amount of the paid content just by playing the game. I actually had to look up how the free loot drops worked for this video because, admittedly, I've never really paid that much attention to it. But despite that, I still noticed and enjoyed seeing a Hextech chest drop and being able to open it for some freebies, even if they weren't always something too valuable. But even that is gone now. That's not even getting into the fact that there are new players, especially after Arcane, who are just learning about League, but they don't have all the champions yet. Someone did the maths and it's going to take new players 882 hours of grinding to unlock a new champion. One of League's biggest issues was that the new player experience is just, to be frank, shit. Yes, part of it is the fact that it's a MOBA that's been out for 15 years, but to be honest, are we really doing ourselves any favors here? One of the ways that this loot worked was by getting a skin shard, which is a free reward that you can receive, which allows you to redeem that skin for a much lower price. If you have an excess of these, you can actually combine 3 shards and re-roll them to receive an actual skin for no cost at all. I personally loved this system, and it's how I've gotten pretty much all my skins in the game for the last 5 years. Most people would probably agree with this. Except for the Rioter who went on a very long Twitter rant about how they need to nerf it because people are getting their skins for too cheap. New champions in League have a tradition of having a release skin. The champion comes out and they get 1 skin. It's pretty nice, especially because these skins are normally nothing too expensive. But Ambessa, the latest addition to League, is officially the first champion to be released with a legendary skin for a whopping 1820 RP. Following the trend of enshittification in the last year or so, this skin debuts at a legendary price tier, but without any of the changes that a legendary skin should have. The idle, run, and attack animations are all the exact same. Majority of the comment section is just confusion about why this is labeled as a legendary. It's less quality for a higher price. Blue Essence, the in-game currency, has also just been completely removed as a reward for leveling up. Now, it's all been shoved into a battle pass, where you get a whopping 4750 Blue Essence upon completion, not even enough to cover the cost of 1 new champion. Hextech chests, as I mentioned before, are also gone. Now, I never really open my loot tab just because I don't really care about it that much, but every single one of these chests in here I've gotten for free, and I don't play League an insane amount anymore. This is still a very decent amount of loot that I have just sitting here for free. But because Riot disabled these free chests from dropping and instead turned them into a paid only item, if I wanted to get these chests today, they'd cost me 3500 RP, which is like 40 bucks. But, you know, to be fair and just to clarify, you can still get key fragments as free loot, except they're completely useless now because you have to pay real money to use them. Like it or not, this is enshittification. I actually almost couldn't even make it to this point in the video because I almost started gambling on my way in to check my loot. But I will say, the game itself is still okay. Okay enough that I still find it enjoyable to play after 15 years, but I can't really ignore everything that's happening outside the game anymore. And if enshittification as a framework is to be trusted, we'd currently be on the phase where the company is trying to extract as much value from paying customers as possible before the next inevitable phase. The product gets shoved into a hole to be forgotten. Okay, subscribe, thanks for watching, bye.